Have you ever had a dream that everyone around you said was impossible? Have you ever felt that pain of being discredited, of seeing people laughing at what is so important to you? Imagine being a child full of hope, but everyone around makes fun of you, saying that your dreams will never come true. Now imagine if from one day to the next everything changed, and that person you admire most appeared to prove that you were always right. Today, you will discover an exciting story that will make you shiver. A story of overcoming faith and twists and turns, that of a boy named Ethan, a humble boy who had an uncontrollable passion for basketball and an idol who inspired him every day, none other than Michael Jordan. But not everything was easy for him. Ethan didn't have the money to buy an original shirt from his idol. He used a fake one, and for that, he was ridiculed by his schoolmates. Plus, whenever I said that one day I would meet Jordan, everyone laughed and said that would never happen. But what no one expected was that destiny was about to take an impressive turn. What happened next proved that dreaming is never in vain, and that sometimes life can surprise us in ways that no one would ever imagine. Everyone laughed at him. They said his dream was ridiculous, but what happened that day silenced everyone. Have you ever had a dream that seemed impossible? That desire so strong inside your chest, but that everyone around you insisted on saying would never happen? What if suddenly life proved you wrong in a way that no one expected? Today you will discover a story that will move you and make you believe in the impossible. In the schoolyard, sitting alone in a corner, was Ethan, a boy of just 9 years old who had a huge passion for basketball. But despite his love for the game, he faced daily challenges. His family could not afford to buy an original shirt from Michael Jordan, his biggest idol. Still, Ethan wore his fake shirt with pride. For him, the Jordan symbol emblazoned on his chest was much more than a piece of fabric. It was a reminder that he could achieve anything, just as his idol once did. But his colleagues didn't see it that way. Every day, he was the target of jokes and mockery. "Look at the king of fake shirts," some shouted. "Do you really think you're going to meet Jordan? He doesn't even know you exist," laughed others. What for Ethan was a pure and sincere dream, for others, it was a reason to mock. But despite the cruel laughs, he never stopped believing. At home, looking at a worn poster of Michael Jordan on his bedroom wall, he muttered under his breath, "One day, they'll see. I know Jordan would care about me." And it was with this certainty within him that he decided to do something. One night, after a difficult day at school, Ethan took a pen and paper and wrote a letter to his idol. He talked about his love for basketball, how Jordan was his biggest inspiration, and how, even though he was ridiculed for dreaming so big, he would never give up. But there was a problem. How would that letter get to Jordan? The answer to that question was about to surprise everyone. Ethan held that letter as if it were his greatest treasure. Every word written carried the pain of being discredited, the hope of being heard, and above all, the desire to prove that his dream was not an illusion. But there was a problem. How would this letter reach Michael Jordan? He didn't have an address. He didn't know where to send it. He just held the paper tightly as if somehow destiny could find a way. The next day, with the letter folded inside his backpack, Ethan headed to school. Deep down, he knew the chances were slim, but he couldn't just give up. When he arrived, he realized that laughter and teasing were already waiting for him. One of the most popular boys at school, Ryan, held up his shirt and sneered. "Still thinking you're going to meet Jordan? Dude, you're nothing but a silly dreamer." Everyone laughed. But this time, Ethan didn't lower his head. He just took a deep breath and walked away, deciding that he wouldn't let those boys destroy what was left of his hope. Meanwhile, a teacher at the school, Mr. Harrison, had observed everything from afar. He already knew Ethan. He knew about his love for basketball, and more than that, he saw something special in the boy, a determination that few had. So that afternoon, when Ethan stood alone on the court, trying to hit shots with his worn-out ball, the teacher approached. "Do you really believe you can meet Michael Jordan one day?" Harrison asked. Ethan paused for a moment, lowered the ball, and responded without hesitation. "Yes, I know I can." The teacher smiled. There was something in that boy's conviction that made him believe too. Then, without Ethan knowing, Harrison took a photo of the boy training alone in his fake shirt and wrote a post on social media telling his story. He described Ethan's passion for basketball, the way he never gave up despite the difficulties, and most importantly, how he was humiliated for dreaming too big. What Harrison didn't expect was that that post would change everything. The post began to gain traction, being shared by amateur players, coaches, and even former athletes. People were moved by Ethan's story, commenting words of support and encouraging him to never give up. But what no one imagined was that that post would end up reaching someone very special, someone who could change Ethan's life forever. If you have ever believed in something when no one else did, comment here "I believe" and tell me, what is your biggest dream? Because what happened next was simply unbelievable. Professor Harrison's post continued to spread. The number of shares grew by the minute, and hundreds of comments appeared from people moved by Ethan's story. But the boy still didn't know anything. For him, that was just another difficult day. Another day where the provocations seemed to have no end. At halftime, Ethan was sitting alone in a corner of the court when Ryan and his friends approached again. The group leader held a cell phone in his hands and laughed. "Look, it looks like you've become famous on the internet," he said sarcastically, displaying the post that had already accumulated thousands of likes. Ethan was confused, not understanding what was happening. Another boy scoffed, "Has Jordan seen it yet? Or will he also laugh in your face?" The laughter was loud, echoing through the courtyard. This time Ethan couldn't hold back. He grabbed his backpack and ran away, trying to hide his tears. He wanted to believe that none of it mattered, that what really mattered was his love for basketball. But the pain of being humiliated every day was hard to bear. When he got home, he found his mother preparing dinner. She knew right away that something was wrong. "Was it bad again today?" he asked with a worried look. Ethan just shook his head and sighed. He wanted things to be different so badly. He wanted people to believe in him for once. She looked at the letter she still kept in her backpack and felt a tightness in her chest. Did it really make sense to keep insisting? The next day, the story took an unexpected turn. Professor Harrison called Ethan to the principal's office. The boy entered hesitantly, not knowing what to expect. The teacher smiled and showed his cell phone. "Ethan, you won't believe it, but this story has gone much further than we imagined." The boy's eyes widened when he saw that the post already had thousands of shares. Celebrities from the world of sport were commenting, but the most unbelievable was yet to come, because among the many shares, there was one name that made Ethan's heart skip a beat. A name he would never have imagined seeing there. Ethan still couldn't believe his eyes. His eyes ran across Professor Harrison's cell phone screen, reading and rereading the comments. Players, coaches, fans, people he didn't even know were talking about him, supporting his story. But then he saw something that made his heart almost stop. A name he had known since he learned to hold a basketball. Scottie Pippen. The former NBA player, Michael Jordan's partner on the Chicago Bulls, had commented on the professor's post. "This story reminds me of someone I know very well," he wrote, followed by a thoughtful emoji. Ethan didn't react. Was it really him? Had Scottie Pippen seen her story? Professor Ty. Harrison smiled and placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. "Ethan, I think things are about to change." Meanwhile, on the other side of the country, the publication had already reached where no one expected. Scottie Pippen not only saw Ethan's story, but sent the post directly to Michael Jordan. He knew this was something his former teammate needed to see, and when Jordan read every line, every detail of that boy's struggle, something inside him changed. He remembered himself as a boy when he was also discredited by many. He knew what it was like to grow up with a dream that seemed unattainable. Jordan was silent for a few moments, holding his cell phone. He looked again at the photo of the boy playing alone on the school court, wearing the fake jersey, but with the same determined stance he himself had when he was young. And then, without thinking twice, he picked up the phone and made a call. On the other end of the line, the principal of Ethan's school answered, not knowing what was about to happen. As soon as he heard the man's voice on the call, he was speechless. "This is Michael Jordan," he said in a firm but friendly tone. "I want to meet this boy." The director was in shock. He tried to respond, but his voice broke. Mr. Jordan, seriously? This is unbelievable." Jordan smiled on the other end of the line. "No. What this boy is about to experience is unbelievable." The decision was made. Michael Jordan wasn't just going to send Ethan a gift or record a supportive video. He wanted to see him in person. He wanted to look into that boy's eyes and show that dreams are not just words thrown into the wind. He needed to teach Ethan that when we truly believe, life can surprise us in the most unexpected ways. And so, the plan began to be put together. But no one, not even Ethan, had any idea of the surprise that was about to happen. Because when Jordan decides to act, he makes history. Michael Jordan wasted no time. After speaking with the principal at Ethan's school, He contacted her team to organize every detail of that visit, but he wanted it to be special. I didn't just want to show up. He wanted Ethan to feel that his story mattered, that his effort and faith in his dream had been worth it. The principal, still not believing what was happening, called a secret meeting with Professor Harrison and Ethan's mother. When she revealed the news, the reaction was exactly what was expected. The teacher stood still, trying to process the idea that Jordan, the greatest basketball player of all time, was actually interested in this boy who, until recently, was just a boy humiliated by his classmates. Ethan's mother, in turn, put her hands to her face, holding back tears. "He'll never believe it. My God, he always knew. He always said Jordan would care about him," he whispered, his voice breaking. But there was one request from Jordan. Everything needed to be kept secret. The surprise had to be real. Ethan couldn't suspect anything. The entire school entered into a secrecy scheme. Only the teachers and the principal knew about the visit. The students could not suspect anything for the reaction to be authentic. To rule out any possibility of suspicion, Jordan agreed that his arrival would take place during a normal school activity. No events, no advanced speeches. He would arrive as if it were just another ordinary day for Ethan. However, Jordan wanted to go further. He asked his team to arrange something special for Ethan. It wasn't just an original Chicago Bulls jersey. He wanted Ethan to receive a unique gift, something that showed he wasn't just a fan, but someone who was now part of history. And that's when the idea came up, an autographed uniform with Ethan's name embroidered on the back, as if he were an official player on the team. The big day was coming. The school was ready, the teachers anxious. Ethan's mother holding back tears every time she looked at her son without being able to tell him that his greatest idol was about to change his life forever. But Ethan continued to live his days as usual, facing the provocations, carrying his hope in his chest and repeating to himself quietly every night before going to sleep, "One day they will see," and that day was closer than he imagined. Now tell me, if your biggest idol appeared in front of you, what would your reaction be? Comment here, "I believe in my dreams," and get ready, because what comes next is simply unbelievable. It was a seemingly ordinary day for Ethan. He woke up early, put on his worn-out Michael Jordan jersey, picked up his basketball and left for school, never imagining that, within a few hours, everything would change forever. On the way, the same thoughts as always ran through his mind. Will this all change one day? Will people ever stop laughing at me? But as always, he pushed aside his doubts and clung to the only certainty he had. He would never stop believing. At school, the routine seemed the same. Ethan passed through the halls, heard some nasty comments about his shirt, but decided to ignore them. Little did he know that, at that exact moment, inside a luxurious car outside the school, the greatest basketball player of all time was about to transform his life. Michael Jordan had arrived. He got out of the car discreetly, accompanied only by his team, and was greeted by the principal and Professor Harrison, who were struggling to hide their euphoria. But the plan was clear. No one could ruin the surprise. Meanwhile, on the school field, Ethan did what he loved most. He was alone, practicing his shots, trying to ignore the distant laughter of some of his teammates. The ball bounced on the floor. The sound echoed in the empty gym. He caught the ball, took a deep breath and threw it. The ball spun in the air, hit the rim and went in. He smiled to himself. But then, a different sound took over the environment. The school speaker activated with a hiss. All the students, inside and outside the gym, stopped to listen. The director's voice echoed firm and clear. "Attention students, today we have a special guest, a very special guest. Everyone, please welcome Michael Jordan." The gym erupted in screams. The hallways were filled with students rushing to see if they had heard correctly. Teachers looked at each other, trying to contain their shock. It was unbelievable. Jordan, at that school, there, in front of everyone. Ethan, at mid-court, froze. His heart raced, his mind went blank. He looked around, trying to understand if this was some kind of joke, but then his eyes turned to the gym entrance, and there he was. Michael Jordan entered with a smile on his face, walking slowly while everyone was still trying to process what they were seeing. The students screamed, waved their arms, some even took out their cell phones to record. But Ethan couldn't move. It was as if time had stopped. Jordan looked around, saw the crowd going crazy, but then his gaze fell squarely on Ethan. He walked up to the boy, stopped in front of him, smiled and said in his unmistakable voice, I heard we have a big basketball fan here. Ethan felt weak in the knees. His idol was there, talking to him, looking at him. It was real. It wasn't a dream, it wasn't an imagination. He wanted to say something, wanted to respond, but his throat caught. And it was then that Michael Jordan did something that no one expected. Ethan was still paralyzed. He looked at Michael Jordan in front of him, but his mind refused to believe that it was real. The entire gym vibrated. Screams echoed off the walls. Cell phones were held up recording every second, but to him, everything seemed in slow motion. His idol, the greatest player of all time, was there talking to him. Ethan's eyes began to fill with tears. The weight of everything he had been through, the humiliations, the laughter from his colleagues, the difficult days training alone, believing in something that no one else believed in. All of it came to a head at once. Unable to hold back his emotion, he felt tears run down his face. It was at that moment that Jordan bent down to his level and, without saying anything, hugged him. The gym fell silent. Everyone watched that scene with heavy hearts. The boy who had always been laughed at was now in the arms of the greatest basketball player in history, a moment no one could ever imagine. Jordan then looked into Ethan's eyes, wiped the boy's tears with his hands, and said in a firm but affectionate tone, "Never let anyone tell you that your dreams are impossible." Ethan just shook his head, unable to form a single word. He didn't need to say anything. His face said it all. On the other side of the gym, Ryan and the other kids who always made fun of him were completely speechless. For once, they had nothing to say. The same Ethan they humiliated for dreaming too big, who was ridiculed for wearing a fake jersey, was now there, next to Michael Jordan himself. It was a scene that no one expected to see. Some looked down in shame, while others simply watched in shock. And then, to make that moment even more unforgettable, Jordan reached into his coat pocket and pulled out something special. He held up an official red and black Chicago Bulls jersey with the number 23 emblazoned on the back. But it wasn't just any shirt, it was autographed by himself. Jordan held the shirt for a few seconds and then handed it to Ethan, saying, "Now you have an original. But know that what matters is not the shirt, but who wears it." The gym collapsed. Everyone screamed and applauded. Ethan held the shirt like it was a trophy, running his fingers over Jordan's autograph, still in disbelief at everything that was happening. He looked at the classmates who had previously ridiculed him, and for the first time he didn't feel ashamed. He felt proud. He had won. Ethan held the official shirt in his hands, still trying to process everything that was happening. The soft fabric, the number 23 on the back, Michael Jordan's autograph right there in front of your eyes. It was like holding a piece of basketball history itself. He looked at Jordan, who smiled and nodded, as if to say, "Come on, boy, now it's your turn." The gym was still in an uproar. All the students were on their feet, some gaping, others shouting with excitement. But then, something unexpected happened. Jordan picked up the basketball that was on the floor and twirled it between his fingers. He looked at Ethan and asked, "Show me what you can do." The boy's heart almost jumped out of his chest. He play basketball with Michael Jordan? In front of the whole school? For a second, fear tried to take over. But then, he remembered everything he had been through. He remembered the times he played alone, ignoring the laughter. He remembered every night looking at Jordan's poster and telling himself that one day he would prove he could do it. He took a deep breath, picked up the ball and bounced it firmly on the ground. Jordan smiled and positioned herself in front of him. "Let's see what you've got, kid," he said, joining in the fun. Ethan dribbled to the right, then to the left. Jordan followed each movement carefully, testing the boy's confidence. Ethan then stopped, straightened his feet and made a perfect three-point shot. The ball spun in the air, touched the rim, and went in. The gym erupted in screams. Ethan smiled hugely, and Jordan clapped his hands. "Not bad, huh?" said the star, catching the ball again. "Now, let me teach you a trick." He drew Ethan closer and began showing off dribbling moves that seemed impossible, but with patience, he guided the boy, teaching every detail. Ethan tried to repeat it, made mistakes a few times, but Jordan just laughed and said, "That's how you learn. No one is born knowing. The difference between those who win and those who give up is to keep trying." After a few minutes, Jordan called time out. He looked around and saw all the students who were previously mocking Ethan were now completely focused on him. Silence took over the gym, and then Jordan spoke. "Listen carefully. This kid here is living proof that no one can tell you what you can or can't do. If you believe in something, no one has the right to take that away from you. Dreams are no joke. They are the fuel that keeps us going, even when everything seems against us. I know, because I was once like him. They've doubted me. They've laughed at me. But you know what I did? I worked harder, I believed in myself, and that's why I'm here today. So, if you have a dream, fight for it. It doesn't matter what others say. The gym was silent for a few seconds until the applause began. But it wasn't just applause of excitement. There were applauses of respect, of recognition. Ethan looked at Jordan, speechless. For the first time, he wasn't seen as the kid in the fake shirt. He was seen as someone who had the courage to dream. And now I want to hear from you. What is your biggest dream? Comment here, I will never give up, and get ready, because what happens after that moment is even more exciting. That day, something changed forever in Ethan's life. When the gym calmed down and Jordan said goodbye, he realized he would never be the same. It wasn't just because he had met his biggest idol, nor because he had played basketball with him. It was because, for the first time, he saw something in other people's eyes that he had never seen before. Respect. Colleagues who previously mocked him now looked at him differently. Ryan, the boy leading the teasing, was mute. For the first time, he didn't have a joke ready. He didn't have a cruel comment to make. He just watched Ethan, unable to hide a look of regret. Other kids who had previously been laughing at Ethan's fake shirt were now whispering among themselves, but this time it wasn't meant to be mocking. It was to comment, impressed, on what they had just witnessed. The next day, Ethan returned to school wearing the official jersey Jordan gave him. He walked the halls with his head held high, not out of arrogance, but because he finally felt like his dream had value. The looks were different. Many students who had never spoken to him now greeted him. Some even asked about meeting Jordan. Others, who had previously despised him, seemed embarrassed, as if they were trying to find a way to get closer. But Ethan didn't hold a grudge. He knew that true victory was not in silencing those who doubted him, but in proving that he was right to never give up. Basketball practices have also changed. Before, Ethan played alone on the court, ignored by everyone. Now he had company. Other boys started asking to train with him, admiring his dedication. For the first time, Ethan didn't feel like an outsider. He felt like he was part of something bigger. His dream was no longer a laughing matter, it was a source of inspiration. But the most important thing was the transformation within Ethan. He no longer needed the approval of others to believe in himself. The meeting with Jordan had reinforced something that had always been inside him, the certainty that dreams are real for those who never give up. Ethan was never the same after that day. The boy who was once ridiculed by his classmates now walked through the school hallways with his head held high, not because he felt superior, but because he finally understood that he should never have doubted himself. Your dream has always been real. What changed was not the world around him, but how he saw himself. The counterfeit shirt no longer mattered. He kept it fondly, not because he was ashamed of it, but because it represented his journey. He knew that no matter what clothes he wore, the true value was within him. The talent and determination he always carried had nothing to do with what others thought. And it wasn't just him who changed. The entire school started to see dreams in a different way. The boys who used to laugh now admired him. Some even asked for basketball tips, wanted to train with him, learn his dribbling skills. The transformation that began with Ethan has spread, and all this because he never gave up. But the most important lesson came from the words of Michael Jordan. He said something Ethan would never forget. Talent wins games, but teamwork and intelligence win championships. It's not enough to have skill. It takes effort, dedication, and, above all, belief. True victory does not happen overnight. It is built with each small choice, with each moment in which we decide to move forward, despite the difficulties. And now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever been discredited for following a dream? Have you ever been told something was impossible but you kept believing? Comment here, what is your biggest dream? And show the world that believing is the first step to making something real. And if this story moved you, wait until you see what happened when Stephen Curry decided to intervene for a Subway employee who was being humiliated by wealthy customers. His attitude shocked everyone. Click on the video that is appearing on the screen now and get ready for another story that will move you.